This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com. I've been doing these reviews of WCW attendance, and after watching an interview that Vince Russo did this week with reporter Vinny Vegas that aired on the Hannibal TV, which was one of the better shoot interviews I've seen him do in recent years, I thought I would go back and look at Vince Russo's first run as WCW writer beginning around October 18th, 1999, and ending around January 10th, 2000. And I mean, they really didn't give him that long of a chance. I'll give him that. I'll be honest, I did not like the WCW creative around this time, even though I was still a high school kid at this time, I think in grade 11. I did not like that they were breaking kayfabe. I was still a fan of the old school. I didn't like the creative control stuff. I never thought Jeff Jarrett was a good main eventer, but I mean that's just my opinion. I like Vince Russo as a person. The ratings he got during the Attitude Era, you can't argue with, and the ratings he got in TNA were TNA's best ratings. And as we'll actually review if ratings went up or not during this period. Vince says that they did go up. So let's see what happened. But as I said, he's a very nice person in real life. He's one of the nicest people in wrestling and one of the most genuine, I would say. And I've been in the wrestling industry since 2001. I've interviewed about 300 wrestlers. I've been a wrestling promoter from 2006 right up until now. I've promoted over 150 wrestling events. I'm also a reporter, so I know a thing or two about who's an asshole or not in wrestling. If you agree with his opinions or not, that's one thing. But as a person, he's not a bad person. So let's start. And this isn't really fair because October 18th, 99. We're gonna start from there. I mean, obviously, he he's just getting started. But October 11th was the Nitro before he started. That did a 2.6 rating. Great considering these days, but we're in a different era. There's a lot more stuff to watch these days and a lot more ways to watch stuff these days. It's interesting, and I've got these figures from the Wrestling Observer. Dave Meltzer was actually very neutral towards Vince Russo. This is what Meltzer writes in the October 25th Observer about Russo. Quote, I'm not even sure that Russo and Ferrara can save WCW. They are obviously experienced writers with track records, but WCW is still missing what WWF has. Wrestlers who can act and do interviews. Most WCW wrestlers who are good on the mic are the same ones that shouldn't be getting pushed because they're older. The oversaturation of wrestling is already here. It wouldn't surprise me to see the ratings for all the shows start to consistently drop. End quote. So even Dave Meltzer is saying here that because I mean they have WCW Thunder, WCW Nitro, WCW Raw, SmackDown, Livewire, Heat, ECW on TNN, WCW Saturday Night, WCW Main Event. There's tons of wrestling, right? Much like it is right now, oversaturating. Um, and interestingly enough, and Hogan, I think, was gone from WCW for this period. This is before Vince even really starts. Here's what Meltzer says about Hulk Hogan, quote, apparently Hogan was the one that came up with the idea to put together the program where management wants him out, a la Steve Austin, as a way to get over stronger as a face. playing it up to everyone as a shoot, and Russo and Ferrara went with it, end quote. So there we go. Before even it all starts, Hogan is written right here in the Observer that it was Hogan's idea, and we know Hogan had creative control to play up management disagreeing with him. So let's start at Vince Russo's first Nitro in Power, October 18th in Philadelphia. There was 7,413 in attendance, 2.63 rating. Halloween Havoc happened October 24th in Vegas, 8,464 paying. Goldberg pinned Sting on that show. Thunder, October 21st, did a 1.89 rating. WCW did a house show in Oakland, California, October 22nd, 3,697 in attendance. Ric Flair and Bret Hart beat Sting and Lex Luger in the main event of that one. WCW Nitro from Phoenix, Arizona, October 25th, did a 3.1 rating, 9,630 in attendance. Bret Hart beat Bill Goldberg to win the title on that one. WCW, October 28th in San Diego, California. Over 5,000. WCW Thunder, not Nitro, in San Diego. Over 5,000 in attendance, 2.2 rating. Just so you guys know on this, it didn't seem like overall they consistently reported on the Thunder taping during this time. The main event of that one was a four-way featuring Sid Vicious, Conan, Saturn, and Benoit. November 1st, WCW Nitro in Minneapolis, 8,362 in attendance, 3.2 rating. Meltzer says from a booking standpoint, this was the best Nitro in a long time. Scott Hall beat Sid Vicious in the main event of that one. So again, at this point, Meltzer is neutral towards Russo. Then November 8th, Nitro in Indianapolis, 9,922 in attendance. Still getting good attendance numbers here. 3.13 rating. Four-way ladder match in the main event. Hall beat Bret Hart, Goldberg, and Vicious to win that one. The U.S. title was on the line. There was a WCW Saturday night taping, November the 9th in Champaign, Illinois, with a very good crowd, 4,261. Horrible main event here. The West Texas Rednecks, Curly Bill, a.k.a. Virgil, and Kendall Will Wyndham, so the B team of the West Texas Rednecks, defeating Scott and Steve Armstrong. Hardly a main event that you'd want to see with over 4,000 fans in the crowd. Nitro, November 15th, from Little Rock, Arkansas, 2.92 rating, before 10,435 fans. Very, very good crowd. Sid, no contests, Kevin Nash. No crowd info from the Thunder taping, November 10th in Fort Wayne. 2.09 rating. Vampiro beat Ming by DQ in the main event of that one. There was a house show in Cleveland, November 19th, 2,900 fans in attendance. WCW Mayhem, WCW's first pay-per-view from Toronto. The Air Canada Centre, almost 14,000 fans at this one. Roughly 2,200 chive capacity. The main matches here were Sting versus Bret Hart, and Bret Hart pinning Benoit to win the world title in the main event. Then Nitro on the 22nd of November in Auburn Hills, Michigan. 11,449 fans. We saw Ming beat Sting. Goldberg and Sid Vicious versus Hall and Nash in the main event. 3.23 rating. Then there was a WCW Saturday night taping in Toledo, Ohio, with only 648 fans in attendance. Creative Control beat Steve Regal and David Taylor in the main event. At this point, you can see they pretty much give up on Saturday night, even though Creative Control were Vince Russo's right-hand man at this time getting a push. That was the Harris brothers. WCW did a house show in Belton, Texas, where I've been to Belton a lot, both to bull ride and wrestle. So I actually popped when I saw this because it's a pretty small town. 2,436 fans in attendance for this house show, where Sid Vicious beat Rick Steiner in the main event. I'm shocked that they did a house show randomly in Belton, Texas, and not any of the main towns in Texas. Maybe that was a paid show. Who knows? The 29th of November at the Pepsi Arena in Denver, there was a Nitro before 12,881 fans. So again, they're getting good crowds here. 3.4 rating, good rating. Benoit and Hart won a three-way tag team over Hall and Nash and Goldberg and Sid Vicious. The main event of that one. Nitro, and again, this, I may have the date wrong here, but they were in Topeka, Kansas next. 2.68 rating. 4,851 fans in attendance. Lex Luger beat Sid Vicious in the main event. December 3rd, WCW house show in Salina, Kansas. Only 1,689 in attendance to see Bret Hart versus Sting. And we've had tons of Great North, not tons, but we've had about 5 Great North Wrestling events above that number. And hardly had star power of Bret Hart versus Sting. I'm not saying we always get crowds above that number, but in our history, we've had crowds from my company above that number. That's got to be disappointing. The next night, December 4th, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, 2,010 fans to see Bret Hart versus Sting. December 5th, a house show, the United Center in Chicago, over 5,000 fans. Bret Hart beat Goldberg. December 6th, WCW Nitro was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 7,250 fans. Goldberg beat Jeff Jarrett in the main event, 3.0 rating. The Thunder tapings, December 7th in Madison, Wisconsin. I don't have the rating for that, but it had 3,953 fans. This seems like a main event that I would not have liked. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash and Jeff Jarrett beat Sid Vicious, Chris Benoit, and Dustin Rhodes. Nitro, December 13th from New Orleans, drew 4,479 fans, plus 2,338 comps for a 2.8 rating. So, in other words, they had over 7,000 fans, probably close to 8,000 fans with the comps. At this point, Meltzer writes, Vince Russo seems to be getting desperate and is blaming standards and practices for ratings not going up significantly. But Meltzer says here that Russo is still not getting anywhere near the ratings, the low ratings that Kevin Nash was getting in his final weeks before being removed as head booker. So he is saying here that these are not the lowest ratings in Nitro history. WCW Thunder from Mobile, Alabama. 3,889 fans, 2.3 rating. Kevin Nash and Jeff Jarrett beat Bill Goldberg and Bret Hart in the main event of that one. WCW had a house show December 18th in Jacksonville, Florida. 3,193 fans. Bret Hart beats Bill Goldberg. So Bret Hart wrestled Goldberg numerous times here. December 20th in Baltimore, Maryland. Nitro before almost 9,000 fans. 3.2 rating, good attendance. Bret Hart beat Bill Goldberg to win the vacant world title, which I don't remember why it was vacant at this point. Meltzer also writes in here, overall attendance for the big three promotions were down this year, 99. However, more money was made than ever due to ticket prices being up for WCW, WWE, and ECW as far as ticket live attendance. So he is saying that live attendance, ticket overall were up, but WCW lost $10 million in 1999, which was the largest they'd lost in history, which we're not blaming on Vince Russo here. It's overall, there's numerous reasons. Nitro, January 3rd in Greenville, South Carolina, drew 4,966 plus 2,082 comps. So over 7,000 altogether there, 3.3 rating. There was a Saturday night taping, and this is the lowest Saturday night taping I've ever seen as far as attendance, in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Only 5,076 in attendance. Booker T versus Chris Harris was one of the main matches of that one. That must have been during the days Chris Harris was in the WCW power plant. There's a good interview with Chris Harris on the Hannibal TV for anyone who wants to look it up. WCW had a house show in Lowell, Massachusetts, January 7th. Over 3,000 fans. Sid Vicious beat Bret Hart on that one by DQ. The 7th of January, they were in Utica, New York, a town that I've been to numerous times, driven through. Not too far from Ottawa, Ontario here. 2,895 fans to see Sid Vicious beat Bret Hart. Bret Hart not getting big crowds on house shows overall, I would say, at this time. This is another really bad crowd. January 9th, State College, PA, WCW. 1,200 fans saw Bret Hart beat Sid Vicious. Horrible crowd for that one. WCW Nitro in Buffalo, January 10th. 8,990 saw Bret Hart defeat Kevin Nash. 3.4 rating. WCW Thunder in Erie, Pennsylvania, taped on January 11th. 3,947 saw Jeff Jarrett and Kevin Nash beat Chris Benoit and Sid Vicious in the main event. WCW had a house show January 14th in Charleston, West Virginia. 5,970 fans saw Sid Vicious beat Randy Savage, who was replacing Bret Hart on this show due to Bret Hart having an injury. Very good crowd there for Randy Savage returning. And it was around this time that they replaced Vince Russo as Booker after only a few months. They replaced him with a committee that included Kevin Sullivan, J.J. Dillon, and Terry Taylor. Kevin Nash was put in a place of power as a liaison between talent and wrestlers. Meltzer writes here that Vince Russo was better liked as a person than Kevin Sullivan at this time. Obviously, Chris Benoit, who married Kevin Sullivan's ex-wife, woman, and ended up killing her, as well as his kid, as well as their kid. Benoit and woman's kid obviously had heat with Sullivan. Ended up leaving the company with a bunch of his quote-unquote vanilla midget friends. They were given their release. Again, Benoit was champion, and he left because he didn't think Sullivan was going to push him, even though Sullivan made Benoit champion. This was just a horrible time in WCW. So, again, the first show after Vince Russo was a pay-per-view in Cincinnati, Ohio. Sold out 14,132 fans. So, again, you got to put that on Vince Russo's booking because it was really just as Sullivan was taking over. And I love Kevin Sullivan, by the way. He's one of my mentors. I'm not saying anything bad about Kevin Sullivan at all here. I'm just saying this was a shitty time in WCW because if anyone remembers, they didn't give Kevin Sullivan a chance as Booker here either. And Kevin Sullivan, just for the record, was the most successful Booker in WCW history. The Nitro, January 17th in Columbus, Ohio, drew 10,646. Very good crowd. And just for the record, before Vince Russo took over, the last Nitro before he took over did a 2.6 rating. And the last Nitro under Vince Russo's control was a 3.4 rating. So, as I said, I'm not even a fan of Vince Russo's booking at this time. I did not like it, but he is telling the truth that during his first run, ratings did go up 2.6 to a 3.4. So there we go. John lights the West Texas Rednecks with Kurt Hennig and Barry Windham. I loved the West Texas Rednecks. Curly Bill and Kendall Windham were definitely the weak points of the West Texas Rednecks. But one of WCW's complete failures was the killing of the West Texas Rednecks. I'm going to leave it at that. They were one of the greatest things of WCW. And whoever is responsible for pulling the plug on the West Texas Rednecks, I will give a big F you to. I would love to know the more details on how the West Texas Rednecks formed. Great faction, underrated faction.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates.